Good evening, everybody. This is the November 9th, not our regular night meeting, but it's a special meeting because last night we couldn't have the chamber because of the election, which was our normal meeting night. So we're meeting tonight, Wednesday, November 9th. This is the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission. We'll call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's play hockey.
Most fitting that we said the Pledge of Allegiance, which we always do, but yesterday was Election Day and across the nation, and everybody was vitally interested in the election results. We'll start with the roll call. Costick is here. Kennedy?
Here.
Schmidtke?
Present, sir.
Stanko?
Here.
John Reilly?
Here.
David Nadeau?
Present.
And Phil? Oh, you called your name. Okay, so we have a quorum, and I'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. I'll make the motion for approval. Are there any additions or deletions? If not, I'd like to have a second.
Second.
Stanko seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Well, I'm going to divert from our routine going through our matters tonight. Jim Budney, our supervisor, is in attendance, the township supervisor. And Jim came, I guess, tonight because we had an important millage approved last night in the election.
We did, but that's not exactly why I'm here. I'm here for one reason only, and that's to thank this commission for all the hard work and support that you put in to that program to get it passed. You guys and Derek worked awful hard on that. I've been on this board, on the township board, for 10 years now. And from year one, I wanted to get our roads fixed. And luckily for me, I was the liaison to the DPS commission and enjoyed all 8 years of that. And we tried twice before, couldn't get it through, and quite frankly, it was one of the reasons that I ran again is I wanted to get our roads fixed, and now we're going to. This is it's a beautiful program. I asked you for some specific things so that we could basically touch all the roads. You gave us a program that could touch all the roads. And the people of Grosse Ile, I don't care whether you voted for it or voted against it, you're all going to benefit from it. But I really just tonight want to thank each and every one of you on the commission, John included, certainly again, Derek and I certainly worked feverishly on this thing. I'm sure it was probably the video that we put out. It was either Bill or Dave that put it over the top. But I just wanted to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work and what you do. Grosse Ile, I'm telling you, this is the best commission on this island. They know what they're doing. They know the rules. They follow them, and they get work done. So I can't thank you enough for that.
Jim, thank you for that, and we're honored to have you say that we're a good commission. I always tell people what we're all about is garbage, sewage, ditches, and that sort. So it's all the public work.
All of which you're putting in my yard, and I don't know why.
Anyway, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. That's all I wanted.
Before you leave, I didn't know you were going to be here, so I had prepared some remarks for a little later, so maybe you'd like to hear them. Yeah. We probably don't have many people watching tonight because it's a Wednesday night. We normally meet on Tuesday nights, but my remarks are, number one, thanks, and I know you feel this way, to all the voters.
Oh, absolutely.
Those that supported, we appreciate the voters' support. And then thanks to you, Jim, for your leadership. Jim insisted that last year, and that would have been December, almost a year ago, that we make a report to the Township Board on roads, which we did, and we had some arguments, too. How many years we were going to go, we looked back, and how much money, and what we could do with it, and what might be supported by the voters. And different from our prior two in 2015 and 2018. We asked for 2 mills. One was 2.2 mills. And because of the financing that Derek and you worked on, we were able to mesh it so that with the reduction of 4.5 mills from our sewer debt, this would not be a huge increase in what people are paying in taxes, property taxes, from what you're paying today. And that included our wastewater plant and the fire department. So this was good work on your part.
Bill, if I can just add to that, not only won't you be paying too much more, but it'll be for a very short time. And then we'll have more millages dropping off, and in a few years, not to say that we won't need another millage here or there for something, but other than that, I foresee in a few years that you're actually going to be paying less taxes in the 25, 26 than you're paying today, and getting all these benefits.
That's a good point. And I was also going to make the point that with regard to that, when we put our millage forward, our request forward, we were ahead of the fire department. We knew we had our wastewater treatment plant proposal required by the state going forward. But then you had the fire department come back on with, which was very important, and 2 school issues, a big bond issue and a millage issue. So here we said, I really given up. I thought with all those other proposals, we're not going to get approval. But anyway, we're very glad and appreciative of the voters that we did. So I also want to thank John. Well, Derek first. Derek, his leadership on this was very good to all of us. And John for taking care of our community as he does. And I know he's out talking to people every day about the roads. And so thank you, John. I also want to thank Margie, your administrative assistant, because she's there pumping away every day, dealing with citizens and talking about the road issue, and very supportive. And then last summer we had the privilege of having a student intern work for free for the manager, and I guess you, Katie Keim, a U of M student, and she helped put together our brochures and our public relations information to get the message out. And she actually called me today all excited she was walking to school on the campus, and she was tickled that it won. She had something to do with it. So thanks to all of those folks. So now comes our responsibility, our obligation to meet the requirements that we put forth, to meet the plan, make the plan work. And you may recall that a plan for next year, and why this is essential tonight, we have a meeting in December we're going to have too, Derek, and I was going to bring up, not knowing you were going to be here, Jim, that for 2023 construction season, if we sell bonds in the spring, and we may have to talk about the amount of those bonds. We originally talked about $6.5 million. Well, with the interest rates going up, maybe and the fact that county did some paving on East River, maybe we should just look at maybe 5.8 or 6 million, which would give us comfort in terms of having some money for neighborhood improvements as well, if you understand that logic.
I do.
And so it's up to us to start to move forward. And with that, we know that there's other sections of East River. There's the section from basically Ferry to Manchester that's in bad shape, and that was part of our overall concern. So that should be on the schedule for next year. And Bellevue is one of our worst primary roads. It's in very bad shape. There's several sunken spots in it, and the edges are falling off of it, and that was a priority for us. So I wanted to make sure that tonight, Derek, we go to our engineers this coming week and ask them for some kind of a report for our December meeting, so we can authorize the engineering to begin. If we take bids in April, or early April, we'll get better bids than we will in May or June for a construction project like that. So I'd like to position ourselves, and we're going to follow the county recs. I mean, it's not that we're going to reconstruct everything, but we're going to mill and put new pavement down. So those should be fairly simple, but there's still some engineering work has to be done. So I wanted to move forward with that.
Bellevue has already been engineered. It was shelved when John Neidhart was the chairman of the road committee because it was too expensive to do at the time. So all the engineering has been done on Bellevue. and it was shelved. So we don't need to authorize them to go ahead and re-engineer it. Just pull the stuff off the shelf.
Okay, I'll ask what can be done to salvage from that. Thank you, Les. And then I want to bring up, and I wanted to invite the commission to bring up, I've noticed in driving around that we got problems on Gray's Drive again, but not near the high school, but as you leave Meridian. The section between Meridian and Parkway, or Park Lane, has a lot of problems. And it's not right adjacent to the high school, but it's the road that all the high school parents, teachers, students use. And we need a lot of concrete repairs there, and especially when we started doing the 18-inch sections, you remember the cuts? To save money on full concrete slab replacement. There may be some slab replacements, but I'd like that looked at. That would be bid separate. It's a concrete replacement, but I just wanted to raise that, and I would invite the commissioners, if you know of any spots that you'd like to throw in for next year that we can show people that we're moving on with this now that we have authorization. That's my point. And then my final comment is, thanks to your efforts and Derek, we're talking to the county in a different light these past couple of years. We know we've had the bridge problems, but it just seems like as of late, and especially with the termination of a prior department head in the Wayne County Department of Public Services and some new leadership there, we seem to have a better relationship with them, and they seem to want to be more cooperative with it.
There's a lot on the list that they're going to give us. I got a call at 7 o'clock this morning to congratulate us on passing the road from the county. I guarantee that would have never happened before. So yes, that's a very important aspect, having that relationship, getting along with people, being able to pick up the phone and call and actually get an answer and have people talk to you. And that's what we have right now. And,
Haven't had that in the past.
We haven't had it in the past, so.
So my point on this, bringing it up with the county is, and I want our engineers, Sahil, to, I think he probably already has, but with the new blood in the engineering division and the permit division at the county and the new leadership that supervises that, there's a couple of factors. Number one, it's important that we do our own engineering. We all know if the county does it, it's going to cost us a lot more for engineering than if the county does it, because they want to bury the cost of their engineering department and have the communities pay for it. That's understandable. So, number one, we want to do the engineering. We will follow their specs, and we don't need lengthy reviews. We've gotten away with that before. They've cooperated with us. And then finally, everything you do in the county right away, they want you to pay for permits. Well, we've always gotten them to waive that, the permit fees. And that's for their review and their inspection. We can do the job and conform to their specs. So it's important, Derek, that that message be transmitted to our engineers so they can make sure those details are in place. We don't want the county doing the design.
No,
or we won't meet any 2023 construction schedule.
And we will do those things. We have a history of doing that before and doing the right job. And there's no reason for anybody to think we're not going to do it in the future. And because we have a better relationship, it'll just be easier to talk to them about those things. But all those things are very important. We are going to continue to try and partner or get Wayne County to do as much as they can so that our money will go further, or maybe even can be reduced as to what we have, because we can get them to do more. And we have worked very, very hard on doing that already, and trying to, just the way we laid this program out, so the tax hit wouldn't be that great on the people. We take all those things into consideration, and I'm proud of this group. I'm very proud of Derek for working with me on these things and thinking differently than we've thought before, and it's paying off.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. And so I want to invite, we're going to put that on a road item on the agenda to authorize moving forward so that we can bid it less, whatever the prior engineering were. We still got to bid it. And I want to invite the commission, if any of you have any project that you see should be done next year, bring them to the table on December 7th. And I'm throwing out Gray's Drive. I already complained to John about some of it, but anyway, okay? So that's all I have. And now I want to ask if any commissioners have anything to add, say on this.
You and Jim, big thanks to the citizens and the residents for their support. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you. Linda?
I'm amazed that all our proposals passed, even, with the roads, all of them. And it shows that the community is really standing up to making us the community we want it to be. So
Absolutely.
John?
Well, this is a nice job. I don't have anything else to say right now.
Okay, Phil?
Just glad it passed.
Les?
I just hope that you're not going to start singing, "Thanks for the memories."
And I likewise just hope that you're not gonna, we'll have the money now to buy a street sign. And, John,
Thanks for all the support to all the residents.
those are brief comments. You're in the audience, Ray. Anything to add?
No, I think it's a great thing for the township.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Jim? you
I
have the-
just thank you guys again. I really appreciate it. And one last thing I'm going to try and do for you is get you one more board member. Try and do that Monday.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, thanks for coming, Jim.
All right.
I'll continue on with our agenda now. We have, the agenda's been approved. We also have the minutes of our October 11th meeting. I'll make a motion for approval of the minutes of October 11th as presented.
And I abstain.
Support.
John's going to abstain?
I
Okay.
wasn't there.
Is there support?
Support.
They do supported. Any comments? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next, we have approval of our vouchers. Everybody's had a chance to look at them. Make a motion to approve the vouchers as presented. Is there support?
Support, one question.
Yes.
We had a $72.95 bill for a R900 V4 wall MIU. What was that, Derek? Or John?
That is the radio unit that reads the meters so we can do the drive-by.
So did it crapped out, or?
Yes, we're coming to the end of our battery life. There
Okay.
was a 20-year battery life, and we're approaching that rapidly.
Okay. Who broke the mirror on the truck? We had-
I
we
can't
had a
remember
bill
which
for
one it was.
A truck mirror from Gorno. I was just curious if we. Anyway, no, I was just curious what that was. It seemed like a.
That's a reasonable question. Any others? Any other comments? Hearing none. We have a motion for approval. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Vouchers are approved. Next, we have a statement of revenues and expenditures. Thus far in the fiscal year, which we're through the 7th month of our operations, I didn't notice anything abnormal. Unless there's any comments, we'll receive and file the statement of revenue and expenditures. Are there any comments? They'll be received as presented. And finally, we have our treasurer's report for the month of October. Anybody have any comments?
One comment?
Yep.
Wait, maybe I just missed it. Didn't we have a whole lot more money in the drain fund? Is that what went to West River?
She's still got to show the tax collections for 2021.
I just thought last month we had 300 and some thousand or more in there.
The two projects on West River Road were paid out of that account, so there was a.
Did they appear on our expenditure side?
They should.
I mean, that's where I was confused.
I don't think this is up to date. I think you're right.
Okay.
I think we had more money in there than that. I know the road fund is up to date, but
I just know last month there was
but our-
a whole
yeah,
lot more money in
our,
there.
our West River Road projects didn't total $50,000, so I don't think.
What was the
West
statement?
River Road, the two projects, they did not total over $50,000.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, one location was 80, and I think the other one was like 120. So they were close to $200,000 for both locations.
Oh, they were?
Yes.
I guess my memory's failing me.
Oops.
Well, we'll ask for an update on that.
Yeah, I was just
for our
curious because
December
it
meeting.
it seemed like we had a lot more money last month, a lot less this month, and I didn't see where it went away in the expenditures, that's all.
And those payments were made, I think, probably last month. And so it might just be the treasurer's report is off kilter with.
Probably should have come out
the
of
voucher
last
report.
month's.
Right.
Okay.
So the funds probably came out on the treasurer's report this month, but the vouchers came out last month, so.
No problem.
On that point, will you ask Ann to update both these, the storm drain fund and the road fund?
Sure.
Frankly, don't like to see, I don't know why it's listed this way with 2020 and 2021 collections and nothing shown there.
Mhm.
Seems to be silly, in my opinion. Maybe she ought to take a look at that. All right, so we have the treasurer's report. Good question, Phil. You want to make a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the treasurer's report.
I will second it.
Or any questions further? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Okay, moving on with the agenda. We have public comment, and we do have a limited audience tonight. Any comments from, okay, hearing none. Ryan Walsh is not here.
Ryan is absent tonight. I can go over the majority of the wastewater plant update under the project status report update. So.
Okay. Are you going to do it now?
I'll do it under my report.
Okay.
Yep.
And so then we'll move on to action items. The first item is a recommended drainage project affecting Island Woods. The motion is, and I'll make the motion, the Grosse Ile Public Service Commission hereby recommends to the Grosse Ile Township Board the approval of a change order to its contract with Detroit Gradall to add an additional $23,000 to perform ditching south of Island Boulevard. And the staff's going to explain this, but just want to explain to Ray, we budget money for ditching services. We do a lot of our ditching. The roadside ditching is really county right-of-way, but they won't do the ditching. We've asked over the years, we need to do it, or it won't get done. And it's been very successfully received by residents. Improves the drainage in their front yards. So either John or
I think John and I will maybe tag team this one, and John, if you want to fill in where I miss. So one of the areas of the island that we've had a significant amount of flooding problems associated with rain events is on Island Drive. We have along Island Drive on the southern end or the southern border of Island Drive is a fair amount of open space. And page 3 of this action item, which is page 21 of your packet, has an overhead that kind of shows that area. And I apologize, it's kind of dark, but I'll try to walk you through this. What occurs when we have a heavy rain event is a fair amount of water flows out of the open space at about the midpoint of Island Drive. There's a ditch that runs between two residences, and that water coming from the open space along that ditch intersects the ditch line that runs along the south side of Island Drive. There is a 12-inch culvert that runs across the front of about 10 homes on Island Drive, which then eventually runs into a 36-inch pipe by way of a structure that eventually goes out to Thoroughfare Canal. Yep, I'm sorry, not Island Drive, but it's Island Boulevard. The issue is the 12-inch culvert that runs along Island Boulevard on the south side of the road isn't large enough of a capacity to be able to support the amount of water that comes out of that property on the south side of the road. So what ends up happening is the system gets overwhelmed. It can't get enough water to that 36-inch pipe fast enough, and you have a lot of over-the-road flooding, front yard flooding, and even into homes flooding occurs. So there are two options to solve this problem. The first option would be to increase the pipe capacity or increase the pipe size along Island Boulevard, where that 12-inch pipe is no longer a restriction to get to the 36-inch pipe. The issue with that is twofold. Number one, you're crossing across a number of residences, and the replacement of a number of driveways, or at least driveway approaches, would be necessary. The second problem with that is the amount of cover that would be available. If you're going from a 12-inch pipe to a 36-inch pipe, the driveway approaches could potentially have to be ramped up because you got to have enough cover over that pipe, top of that pipe, to be able to have between that and the concrete driveway. So that's another issue. The cost to go that route would be fairly significant. So looking at different options, option number 2 came up, and that was basically to do what's being proposed to you tonight. The excavator that we used for the Manchester Woods drainage project last winter, they would be hired. It would be an extension onto their roadside ditching contract that we have, and they would ditch about 3,000 feet from where that water flows out of those woods between those homes, basically intercept that and ditch to the west to an existing swale that runs to the thoroughfare canal. If this overhead was better, you could see that there is an existing drainage ditch that runs from the end of the left side of that red dashed line all the way through the woods to the thoroughfare canal. John and I did walk that not too long ago, and John walked it extensively with the contractor. That ditch line has more than enough capacity to be able to take that water that is currently being jettisoned out to Island Boulevard. So there's no issue with capacity there. In addition, the spoils from that excavation will be cast to the north of that ditch line, or that new ditch line, which would basically create a berm in essence that would eliminate that water from flowing to the north to Island Boulevard and keep it to the south in that ditch line and eventually to the west. So that is what's being proposed. I think both John and I feel that the pricing is very reasonable, and it's extension of that contract that we had with Detroit Gradall, and it's a vendor that we've used the past couple of years with a tremendous amount of success. We're very happy with the work that he's done, and have all the faith in the world that he'll do a great job with this as well. So, John, do you have anything else to add?
Just in addition to that, part of the ditching is also going to be on the far south side of that open space property, which backs up to Ferry Road, which is going to alleviate a lot of backyard flooding along Ferry Road for those residents as well.
Okay, I've walked that area in the past. It's pretty heavily wooded. We have a straight line here. Is the ditch going to go in a straight line? I mean, is there room to put a ditch in
Yes.
without cutting a lot of trees down? You have to cut a lot of trees down?
We walked it and marked out the path currently.
And he will, just like he did with the Manchester Woods, try to snake it through to make sure no large trees need to be eliminated. But the area that he's working in is scrubbed, more scrubbed than it is
Okay.
mature hardwood or anything like that. So
Bill, unless you guys, what are you guys looking at?
Well, that wasn't included in my packet. That's why I'm sounding real confused.
oh,
Oh, it's not in your packet? Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so sorry for that. Does Les have it?
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm looking over his shoulder, or
Okay.
I was looking at the photograph for Rucker and Lake and saying we're,
Well, the res,
Not
so
making
the
sense.
quality of this map is not easy, but at the
it was
bo-
better before it got copied, I think.
But-
So,
but the
and I
bo-
was going to try to put it on the overhead tonight, but the computer's not working because it's
the bottom
much
of the
easier.
page is East River Road. The bottom of the page is East River.
The right side of the page is East River. The bottom of the page is Ferry, towards Ferry.
If you have the canal up above,
Canal should be on the left. If you're holding the paper and landscape
oh, yeah,
format.
well, I'm holding it
Yeah,
this way, not this way.
Thoroughfare
thoroughfare
canal.
canal, yeah.
Island Drive goes to East River.
Correct, yep.
No,
Island Boulevard goes to East River and Gage. Gage on the west.
Boulevard.
Island Boulevard, and that's what we're talking about is Island
Island
Boulevard.
Drive comes off of Meridian
All right,
in Jewel Colony.
Yep. I think I mentioned Island Drive when I started, but it's Island Boulevard.
all right, Les, I stand corrected on that.
It's
But my
Gage.
question is where the red dot lines, I got, if I'm looking at it this way, which is what you mean,
Yes,
River's at the bottom of Island Drive.
the right here on your page.
So, which would be the south end of the ditch we're gonna put in.
Yes, but the starting point is about the middle point of Island Boulevard.
Okay, so the red line stops on this drawing.
Correct.
Is it because there's a pipe there already, or a ditch
Because there's
there?
a ditch there already.
Works well? We're gonna clean it out, or?
We don't need to at this point.
That was my question. Okay. Are there other questions from anybody else? Would anybody like to make a motion for approval?
I will make the motion to approve this project to get this ditch done by Great All,
Detroit Great All.
Detroit Great All,
Or Island Boulevard, ditching.
or Island Boulevard.
Not Islands Drive. And for $23,000. So Les made the motion. Is there support?
Support.
Linda? Stanko? Support. Any other questions or discussion? I think it's a good project. Call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Project is approved. Derek, next project.
You want to introduce it or take a motion and then I'll explain?
Sure. This proposed project is to construct a retention basin between the roads of Lake Road and Rucker Road at a not-to-exceed price of $18,800 to resolve some flooding problems that experienced on both Rucker and Lake. And again, it's an open space area that drains and affects the rear yards, maybe the front yards of many homes. So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I was approached probably maybe 2.5 years ago by some residents about at the midpoint of Lake and Rucker Road on both sides. They experience a pretty significant drainage problem in that area. I think at one point in time there used to be a drainage ditch that ran all the way from Meridian all the way to East River Road that helped to alleviate rear yard drainage problems in that area between those two roads through encroachments, through improper filling, through the installation of unpermitted accessory structures, reclamation of easement by neighboring properties. That ditch line no longer exists between those two roads. So to reestablish that ditch line would be a very, very significant undertaking, would be very costly, and would impact pretty much every resident on Lake and Rucker Road. The main issue that we have is about at the midpoint, once again, of the road, with drainage issues in 4 or 5 properties, 2 or 3 on Lake and 2 or 3 on Rucker Road. So when we were presented with this issue, these individuals were having flooding coming into their home because they're fairly flat and there's nowhere for the water to go. So the water was actually coming into their homes as we would have these large rain events of an inch or more. So we went through and did a fair amount of research with our engineers and with contractors over the past 1.5 years to try to formulate a strategy. And the problem is, on most of these drainage projects, it's not dealing with the water per se as far as where it is, it's where you take it to. And that really is the biggest problem here, because there needs to be some sort of conveyance towards an outfall or something like that of the water that accumulates. So, and the issue we have in this area is there isn't a tremendous amount of elevation to work with. So if we were to take the water to the ditch lines on either side of either Lake or Rucker, the area of flooding is not that significantly higher than the bottom of the ditch line. So what that means is basically you have a hard time making that water go that direction. And when you can't make the water go the direction because you don't have enough fall, what that means is a pump station. Well, pump stations we try to avoid because they're costly to install and costly to maintain, and they're a lot more involved in both aspects than the township would like to do. So, so what's being presented tonight is a low-cost option, a low-cost solution to that problem. And basically what it is to install a retention basin in the rear easement area between these homes. And on page 24 of your packet is a overhead, once again, of where that would be installed. Unfortunately, once again, with the copying of this, the picture isn't that great, but a retention basin would be installed, and then an outflow pipe would be put in from that retention basin towards Rucker Road that would intersect the drainage ditch that runs along the roadside. And basically, when that pond, that retention basin filled up, then we could either pump it via that pipe, or it could flow via gravity if there's enough fall. So that is the proposal. The residents, all the residents in that area, those 4 corresponding homes on the corners of that retention basin, have all been in active communication with me with regards to where we're at, what the proposed solution is, and following the installation of that pond, we expect to receive drainage grant applications from all 4 residents so that they can then tile their properties and drain to this location, because right now their yards have flooding problems. So basically it'll be a receptacle for their drainage systems on their property. So that's what's being proposed to solve this problem. It's been, gone over probably over the past 2 years to try to get to this point, and we feel that this is the best option with all things considered. So
Sounds like a good project. The only question I have is, how deep is the retention basin going to be, and is there enough flow, enough gravity flow out of it? Or are we going to have to pump out of it?
there is the possibility we might have to pump. If the water gets high enough, it'll flow out of the pipe, but whether it's at the rate that we can stand, I don't know. I don't think it's probably going to be optimum for a gravity feed just because that fall isn't there. But the contractor was going to install a cam lock system on there so we can actually bring out a pump and actually pump that pond down and discharge it to that drainage ditch if it gets to that point. So that was, part of that conversation. So
Oh, there are 4 property owners affected?
yes, yep.
Land would be taken from them.
No, this is in an easement area.
Is that the Park Lane easement?
Where that discharge line is going to go along the Park Lane easement, yes. Yep, it's right. If you see where that red line is, to the east of that is the Park Lane easement. So that pipe will run in the Park Lane easement to the north.
What about the retention basement? Is that in an easement?
Yes, that's in an easement as well in the rear behind these properties. Behind the properties on Rucker and behind the property on property.
Was there a road easement there at one time, or what?
I think it's a utility easement, yep. So, and go ahead.
Well, I'm just curious. It's perfectly clear to the property owners, though, that it is going to be their responsibility to swale into the retention pond?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And they would do that through a drainage grant. So we would actually participate in some of that cost, but no different than if any other resident applied for the drainage grant program. But it would give them basically a receptacle to receive their water because they don't have enough fall from their property to the
Right.
front yard ditches at this point. They need something that's lower to be able to go to, and that this would be provided for them to do that too.
So, from a safety standpoint, this is in the rear yards affecting 4 people.
Correct.
Even though it's in an easement, it's part of their lots.
Well, I think that the easement, the ownership is township ownership. So I don't think it's just an overlay easement like for utilities. This is like township-owned property, township utility easement. So the ownership is maintained by the township.
Is the pond in a wooded area?
It is, but it's
Like
not,
an open space, or is it part of their yards?
it's in open space. It's in wooded area, yes, yep.
Not something they mow?
Right, and it's hard to tell in the picture, but especially when there's a big blue oval over it, but that's all wooded area. And it's not, once again, it's more scrub than it is mature hardwood, so.
How deep is it?
Yeah, go ahead.
How deep is that pond going to be?
Like 3 feet, It won't be that deep. It's gonna be more of a, you know, a shallow area than it will be
Okay.
actually a deep
Because the
pond.
reason I'm saying that, Derek, is if you look at the pond that's on the airport on the west side of Meridian, in the
Nothing-
winter time when that freezes, that's a magnet for kids and ice skates.
Yeah, and it won't be anything that deep or that large, so.
Other questions on this matter? So you guys have looked at this and you're both very much in favor of it? And the residents are all in favor?
Yes, if they, I'm surprised they're not here tonight, but I'm sure that they will be ecstatic. I've had no less than 15 or 16 conversations with an individual on Rucker and as many with the individual on Lake. As a matter of fact, one of the residents is an elderly woman, and it got so bad that she actually put a bucket in the ground along the property line by this wooded area that had holes in it with like a sump pump, and she pumped the rear of her yard down all winter, or I'm sorry, all summer with just running a garden hose to the ditch line, and that kept her property from flooding. But that's how significant, you know, the flooding problems were for her, where she felt, you know, that was necessary. So she will be very happy.
Okay, so you've had an explanation. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
David Nadeau's made a motion. Is there support?
I will support it.
Supported. A final chance for any questions. Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Derek?
Motion?
What?
Do you want to make a motion on item C, and then I can explain it? Are you looking at the old packet or the new packet? Winter priority maintenance, yeah.
Oh, that, you added that. Yeah, I've got the old packet. I don't need it. I know what it is. Okay. So item C is a recommendation to the Township Board to execute an agreement with Wayne County for priority winter maintenance services to local roads. This is based on the dollar amount is based on the last winter season. And for 2022-23, the county's given us a bill of approximately $19,958.89. Now, this is traditionally something we've done, and we've had questions about it in the past, but it's been going on for many years, and Canton Township, all the other townships pay something like this. So what it induces the county, or if we have ice of any kind, to come in and do our school bus routes as a priority. So if we didn't do this, the idea is that they would be out de-icing I-75, Jefferson, Fort Street, some of the major thoroughfares. So we get a truck out here in the winter when we have ice build up, and so we've been doing this for years. I'll make the motion for approval.
Or,
It's a I should explain, it's a recommendation to the Township Board to execute the agreement with Wayne County for priority winter maintenance services, mostly ice control, on our local roads. They do the primary without this.
And this will be on
Neighborhood streets.
this will be on the agenda for the board on the 14th.
Dave, you supported it? I do. So Nadeau supported, Costick made the motion. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
I'm-
passed.
Les, give him a chance.
I am opposed. I've been opposed to this for the last 20 years.
Okay, so Les is opposed. So Les was nay, right? Derek, you still got the floor.
All right, I'll get through this kind of quick. I think we've talked a bit about the roads millage already. So if there's nothing else on that item, I think the chairman and the commission, I think, seems like you guys are in lockstep with the next steps moving forward. So, we'll get moving on that. And I'd like to add as well, thanks to the residents for, voting for that, and having the trust in the community's leadership to move forward their priorities and to spend their money wisely and get things accomplished on their behalf. So thank you very much for that. Water loss report, 12.756%. As was mentioned last month, you'll see that we billed more than we purchased, which is that catch up from previous months on the quarter. So I think last month we were right around 13.5%. We're down to 12.756 because of that adjustment. John, do you want to add anything on water loss at all? Okay. Any questions on the water loss report?
Les?
How's the fall flushing going?
Good. We're actually moving on to winterizing fire hydrants now.
Okay.
Regarding the DPS projects update, as I had mentioned earlier, I'll cover some of Ryan's information in the project update. First and foremost, John, would you like to touch on the cleaning and televising?
As it states in the packet, Safeway is about 95% complete. They did complete a section that was inaccessible because of the wet weather on Bellevue, between Bellevue and Parkway last week. So that's through the country club. So we were able to get that accomplished. We're going to accomplish the southern part between Bellevue and Hawthorne Glen beginning next Monday. And then we still have to review with the engineers the section along the thoroughfare canal between Meridian and the wastewater treatment plant due to access.
Water levels are down now.
Well,
Still a problem?
yeah, it's heavily wooded.
Still up. I think they're still up from where they had been a couple of years ago. They're still up. And the charts will show you that. They're like up, Lake Erie's up like maybe half a foot.
We're way down.
The biggest
No,
problem.
I know it's way down from where it was. 2 years ago was super high. It was the highest ever. The highest before that was 1985. So it's come down, and if you look at the charts, it's still not down. It's still up.
The biggest problem, Bill, is the access. It's heavily wooded.
Speaking again.
Along the thoroughfare canal between Lowry and the wastewater treatment plant by the bridge there.
One of the fortunate things that we have going on for us, it's been a pretty dry fall. So getting onto the golf course has been a challenge, has been a big concern of ours. The fact that they're out there working right now is great news, because that's a main trunk line for the sewer system, and we got to get that clean from a capacity and a condition assessment standpoint. So
I don't know where that line goes.
Which one are we referring
Golf
to?
course.
Through the golf course, right down through the middle. If you look out to your condo from your porch, if you look north, it's right in that valley, all the way straight through to the Bellevue and then right to Parkway. And then that also.
Where's the swale that's a continuous valley through there? That's where it is?
Correct.
Goes all the way over to the thoroughfare
That goes
canal.
all the way to Thoroughfare Canal to this line I'm referring to that's heavily wooded, that you really can't get to that one. So they have proposed to us to use a floatable camera to at least televise it and see how much capacity we are restricted, or see if there's any serious infiltration.
Is there a lot of junk in that sewer?
It was heavily in the northern side of Bellevue, so what we've seen so far just by visual in the south side's not that bad.
they were able to factor out the.
Yes, they backed out all the debris.
Okay, so that's good, that we're going to finish that hopefully.
Correct.
And then we'll
And that's
start,
not been done, as far as I know, since its inception when it was installed.
how big a pipe is that?
Never.
How big a pipe is that?
27,
7-inch pipe?
Correct.
Whole golf course,
correct.
bottom of that valley.
14 green, the manhole's right in the middle of the fairway.
The guys, while they're televising, they're playing rounds of golf. Is that what they're doing?
Well, it's not much of a, really, just interruption.
Not right now, no. It was just a matter, like Derek had stated, that it's dry enough that we can access it now.
I noticed on Bellevue, near the pro shop, or not, through the halfway house. There's a bunch of pipe, a lot of pipe stored there, and a big a backhoe. What's going on there?
That's conduit for an electrical feed coming over from Trenton. So that's HDP pipe that they're using as conduit to be pulled underneath the river to pull an electrical feed from Trenton over to Grosse Ile. The island's serviced by 2 feeds with 1 redundant feed. So they're replacing one of the 3 feeds. And that goes from the DTE property over to Ruthmere, and then it comes over. Remember when Meridian was closed right by Public Safety a couple of months ago? There's conduit that was installed when that was closed under the road, and that comes off the pole under the road, and then it goes over to the substation over on Macomb. So that's what that's all about. So that project will be going on probably till the spring. Yeah, but that's what that is.
I don't know. Could you, do you have access to the direct route of it? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it's-
On that pipe I looked at, it's a 12-inch pipe at
Right,
least.
that's gonna be the casing for the conduit.
12-inch pipe. It's pretty big.
They're gonna be 60 feet below the water level. In the bedrock. They're almost ready to come on shore, actually.
They're gonna tunnel that?
They're tunneling as we speak, and they're almost here.
All the pipes stored over by the golf course.
Correct.
So why?
And so that's beginning on Monday. They're gonna begin fusing that pipe together, just like we did on our water main project. So it's all gonna be strung along the north side of the road, all the way along from the halfway house, down to where Water's Edge property joins the country club, and then they're gonna cross the road right there.
And they're
That's
going
why
to
that
go
road's been
along the
closed.
wooded area to Ruthmere and down, and then under the canal, under the
Well,
river.
they're gonna cross West River Road at Ruthmere.
They're gonna dive before they cross West River Road. Yep.
I didn't realize that. That's a big project.
So there's that's going on. Then we had the gas main project that happened last year that came over from Trenton, and then we have another gas main project going on over at Meridian Road Bridge, in anticipation of that bridge being replaced. And then there'll probably be another gas main project on Ferry in anticipation of the Ferry Road Bridge replacement. And then we have engineering that they're going through right now for the Elba Island Bridge, which that supposed to be, I think, replaced next year. So, but they've started engineering on that as well. So there's a lot going
I
on.
thought it was Ferry next year in '24.
I think Ferry's next year, and Albemarle's might be 24 by the time they get around to it. So, but they are doing engineering. Wade Trim's doing the work on that. So,
You had an
requested
update
for
when they're
utilities.
gonna start work on Meridian Bridge?
and probably in the spring. I know that the bids came in, and I'm not sure if they awarded yet or not.
If not,
Have not, but it's, I think, what, Toby was the low bidder. So
That bridge being replaced, or is it just being repaired?
replaced. Yep.
Eric, do you or John know the reason why they put another gas main over here? Are they going to disband the one coming over from King Road?
You're talking about the project last winter?
The gas main that they brought over here to tie in at
Long Parkway.
along Parkway.
The new one that they did, I think that was more just a replacement than anything.
But that's, see, Grosse Ile was always fed with the main that came across at Highland and King.
Uh-huh.
That was our main feed ever since 1963 when it came on to Grosse Ile.
Yeah,
Redundancy.
is that what it was? Yeah, I can't recall. It was
I was
12
just
months ago,
wondering
but-
if it's just an added main in case something happens to the other one, or they're going to disband the other one. I was just curious.
Yeah, and like John mentioned, it was redundancy. It's been a while since we talked to them because that project's been closed out for probably a good 6-8 months, and we're on to the next one. But yeah, I think that,
Like our water main, last 2 feeds, just in case.
and same with the electric feed. They'll put one into redundant, and then they'll keep the one that they're bringing over as a primary. So they have, it takes 2. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the trailers, the trailer mounted generators that are around the island, down at the airport and stuff, that's because they're on 2 feeds right now. So in case one of those feeds goes down, they have these trailer mounted generators they could upload into
Well,
the system.
One of their feeds, a big feed comes over at Ferry Road. Because
Yeah.
I know when we had to dig over there on West River Road, it was always a heart attack where that big line comes across.
Right.
Well, we ought to be grateful that they're upgrading the electric and gas service to the island, right?
West River drainage improvements, those are all but done. We gotta do some ditching along, the second location to the south. So the contractor, I think Charlie was working, Campo Brothers was working with Detroit Great All, the same guys we're using for the Island Boulevard project, to do that. And that should be worked on here shortly, so.
I do have a comment on that. Near Island Estates Drive, that there's, after the work was done, there are still some dead tree limbs, not big ones, that haven't been hauled away or cleaned up. But I'd like to spend a little bit more money, drain money, to clean some of that out so it looks better.
That'd be a good winter project getting in there, so we
I
can.
spoke to the contractor already, he's on board.
Primary and secondary sludge pumps, we purchased the pumps already. We're out to bid right now for the install. I want to say the bids are due by the 5th of December, and the install bids will coincide with the delivery of the product, so we should be in good shape there. I think when the chairman and others were touring the facility, a week ago or so, you saw the second final clarifier still, they didn't have it up and running. So these sludge pumps will help that out. That's what this is all about.
Right,
So,
okay. Yep, it was empty, right.
Yep. HVAC is still part of the ACO. Bids look like they're probably going to be due for the ACO work, which is the basis of design on your project status report. Looks like we'll probably end up having that due the end of November. I think the original bid due date was the 14th. I think we're going to be pushing that probably to the 28th. During the mandatory pre-bid on the 3rd, some of the feedback was there's just not enough time. We need more time to put the bids together. So I think they're probably going to push that to the 28th, but it'll be in time for you guys to consider on the 7th. The intent would be to have the engineers here to explain things to you as far as what they're recommending, how the bids came in, and all that. So that'll be a presentation that you'll see in the beginning of December. Nothing really associated with the asset management plan with the exception of the TV work that we were talking about. Permit application was received, so no big deal there. Clarifier 1, the contract was awarded to Veolia. We're still waiting on some insurance and bonds from them and some contract language, which is on the agenda for the board on the 14th. And then VFD's, that is on the Township Board agenda for the 14th. That concludes the project status report. Paving projects, I'm sure
Okay,
we'll
so
start
on
putting stuff on
that,
there.
I'd like to discuss right now our next meeting date. That's related to the sewer. And last time we spoke, the bids were scheduled for November 17th.
Yes, my bad. I think I said the 14th, it was the 17th. That'll probably be the 28th.
So because of that, the dilemma we have, and I don't remember the date, I think it was the 12th of December is the Township Board meeting, right?
Yes, that's the
Our
second
normally
Monday.
scheduled meeting would be December 13th. You see it on the agenda. And here's the dilemma I see with it, is this is the biggest single contract we will ever have dealt with, right? The wastewater treatment plant. I hate to see this go to the Township Board and us act on it the next night. In other words, it's such a big project, I think we ought to, my proposal to Derek was, that we talked about, is that we meet on the 7th, which is, I forget what, I don't have my calendar in front of me, or my phone.
It's a Wednesday.
Yeah, it's a
Basically, a month from today, essentially. And that would give, we would sit down with the engineers and have a full-blown presentation. So one of the questions I have on the pre-bid, do you know how many contractors showed up?
3.
Pre-primary?
3 primary, and there were something like 20 subs or suppliers, so,
So the 3 that were there, are they good, solid contractors?
yes, reputable, yep. And Raines wanted to move the bid due date because there were a number of the primes that said that they probably weren't going to be able to get it in by that date, so obviously our interest is to try to get as many bidders as possible, so they're willing to accommodate pushing things back a week and a half, so long as it still jived with our schedule, so, but, I mean, we're talking millions of dollars here, so, you know, we don't want to, we want to try to get as many bidders as possible so we have as many prices to choose from, so, and the 3 were all reputable, good contractors, so.
Eric told me that the concern is, don't want to delay this a month. We want to award the contract, correct? In December.
Yeah, we had submitted a schedule to Eagle that stated that we would start construction in February. So in order to keep with the schedule that we submitted to Eagle, awarding the contract in December would keep us on track with that. So that's the reason for that.
The only township board meeting, because of the holidays, is that December 12th meeting. So what our proposal was, is that we schedule our next meeting for December 7th, Wednesday. And what I envision is that the engineers will come in and we'll have a full spread sheet for all of us to look at with unit prices for the different kind of work. But you're going to have a lot of concrete work, a lot of pipe work, a lot of electrical work, plumbing work, obviously. And my point is, since this is a big contract, I'd like for the staff to be able to say to the township board that the commission fully reviewed the low bidder and the bids, and that we make a recommendation to them for approval before it goes to the township board. Now, our normal meeting schedule is, we meet the Tuesday night after the Monday night township board meeting, and once in a while, we get caught in a dilemma where they approve, we put something on their agenda subject to our approval the next night. Well, this is a big contract. And I don't want this to go forward without us being able to say that we've reviewed it, and Derek's worked up with the township clerk that this will be on the agenda for them, and we'll meet and make a recommendation.
And I would hope to get you guys your packets the Friday before that Wednesday meeting, so like on December 4th. But there's going to be the possibility that I might not be able to get them to you to the Monday before that Wednesday, depending upon when Raines generates their recommendation to award, because they've got to take the bids. If they're due on the 28th, they got to take their bids and do all their analysis, call references, and all that sort of stuff. So you might not get your packets till Monday, just to give you guys that heads up.
Well, let me address that, okay? I'm not worried if we don't have the details, because I assume they're going to bring in a detailed unit price analysis and recommendation. And if there's a problem with the bid, they'll tell us. And they may have to reject the bids if there's a problem, right? And, I mean, hopefully that won't happen. So if you could still get the packets out on the meeting, because I would like to discuss the road issue too.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be a problem. I only mentioned that
Well, it
you'll
could be.
get them. It might just be that Monday.
It could be, but if he hand carries it into us that night, we're going to sit down and go through it with him.
Right.
We will not have had a chance to look at it in advance, but we'd get lost in the numbers anyway. I mean, I've seen these unit price bids that are complicated, and it's better if somebody walks you through every element of it, and we could ask our questions. I would envision that it might take an hour or plus to go through that with them. And then I'd also like to discuss the road issues at that meeting. The roads that we've already outlined, and if anybody comes to the table with a road project that you think we'd like to do next year, I'm inviting you to do that. Okay? Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, yep.
Everybody understand that? Okay. So, I guess as far as our next meeting date, we could deal with that now.
I think it's on everybody's revised agenda as the 7th.
I,
You got the old one, yeah.
so everybody's okay with that meeting date? All right.
Is there any advantage to starting earlier that day? I'm just curious if it's gonna be, I just bring it up if we're gonna have,
Everybody, could everybody start earlier? I could. I mean, most of us except John are retired.
I never know. You know, I really don't sometimes. Sometimes my schedule builds that day. It starts on
The
fire.
public is used to us starting at 7.
well, that's fine. I mean, it's.
Leave it at
not-
7.
Okay.
And you'll post a notice of the meeting, agenda and so forth?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so now we're back up to John, Keim, any comments you might have, John?
Good evening, everyone. As I had stated earlier, we are now in the process of winterizing all the fire hydrants, so you see all our guys out there working on that. Another item that's going to be coming up for the residents to be aware of is our contractor, HydroCorp, has sent out letters regarding backflow prevention at residents. So you're going to be seeing those letters come to you soon. And then also another state or Eagle mandate is they want us to update our lead service line inventory. So anybody that's living in an older home that may have a lead line, will see myself or one of our representatives coming out to verify that you do have a lead service line. And I already gave the update on Safeway, so that's all I have for tonight.
You're getting this lead line thing from Eagle, the state?
Yes, so by 2025, we have to have a distribution systems material inventory completed. And so right now because we just went through our lead and copper sampling plan and did our samples, they want us to update the inventory because they think that we should have more sample sites that contain lead service lines only. So he wants me to update that list to make sure that we're definitely at least sampling every line that we are aware of that is lead. So historically what we've done is we've had the same sample sites for numerous years. Any site that comes up above the allowable limit, immediately or as soon as possible, we remove that line and replace it. So today's Wednesday. Monday, we replaced the only one that was elevated for this year of sampling. So as soon as we find them, it comes out. Around 40, but they haven't been verified. Go ahead.
Where was the one you replaced, John?
Iromar just west of, or excuse me, Whitehall just west of Meridian.
Any questions of John?
Yeah, I do have a question of John. And I think you and I talked about this, but when you replace a water line, you're taking out a 3/4 inch lead line. Are you putting in a 3/4 inch line, or are you bringing it up to our standards, which is a 1 inch line?
1 inch line, new 1 inch tap, all the way to the meter.
Because that's what the standards were set many, many years ago, back in the 60s, because of some of the 2-story houses that were built south of Church Road weren't getting enough water, so they upgraded the standards to a 1 inch line. And I was wondering about that, so good. Make everybody happy.
Try.
Any other questions?
Not with John.
Okay, so discussion items, or any items anybody wants to throw out for discussion? Les?
Yeah, glad you asked. You were talking about a permit from the county. Then every time you go to do something, you got to go through this permit stuff. We have a blanket permit with the county for any of our excavations that we do on this island. I wonder if that permit could be utilized for what the right hand doesn't know that the left hand is doing.
The permits that he's referring to are project-specific permits and aren't covered under our general maintenance permits. So those permits are generated anytime we do a road project because they review the scope, they inspect the project. Unfortunately, it's not part of their blanket system. A lot of times they'll try to charge for the inspection fees and the plan reviews and all that sort of stuff, and normally we get those fees waived and we will continue to do that because they can be significant. So,
Well, Les, we've been successful with our paving projects, Church Road and other things, to get them to waive the fees.
Yeah,
They still, one of the engineers always puts it in, and then we have to go to the higher-ups to get it waived. But we've been successful so far.
yeah, I was just curious because I remember many years ago, we had a little snafu about that permit in the county, and we ended up getting things straightened out. I mean, that's a long time ago.
I don't know if you realize it, Les, but I realize it from talking to these guys. There's been a complete change in the engineering staff, the permit staff at the county. There's no names you would be familiar with. And in a way, it's a blessing, because some people that weren't very cooperative, would never return phone calls, are gone. And it's better.
Oh, good. It's about time.
That's how I feel, too.
Yeah. The only other thing I have is, are we doing anything with the rust problem on the north end of Swan Island?
John and I talked about that before the meeting, and I think the strategy, if everybody's okay with it, was just to continue to flush it more often, to keep the water flowing through there better, and see how that pans out before we incur any significant cost to, do any kind of infrastructure work there, so.
Okay. Moving along. Chairman's report, I've already talked enough. Just, again, anybody that's tuned in, thanks to all the citizens for voting for our road program. Road millage, we're going to do a good job. And I was going to say this, but I don't know if you all realize, but there was a 60-40 split, so 60% voted in favor of it, which was really nice. It was 3,867 yes to 2,572. So thanks. All of us are going to benefit from this. So that's all I have. We'll go around the commissioner's table. David.
Nothing to add other than, a couple of these projects will be on the board agenda for Monday night, so
Good.
we'll get those.
Tune in, right? Tune in and watch.
Oh, sure.
Linda.
Nothing.
John.
I don't have anything further right now.
Okay. Phil.
I should have brought this up during discussion items, but I think, are we going to meet in January?
Glad you brought it up. Probably not.
Probably not. Okay, I think based on that, I think come December, we need to be able to discuss our road project schedule. And I also brought up several months ago that I felt, and of course we weren't sure this was going to pass at that time, I felt that we need to consider putting some chip seal projects on our first year of road work, in that some of the roads right now that we would want to chip seal are probably going to have deteriorated beyond the point that they would be able to be chip sealed if we wait until 2024 to do that. So I think we need to be looking at the logistics of how we're going to go forward with our road projects, and based on not meeting in January, I think we need to be ready to discuss that in December, because one of the problems we ran in with our chip seal years ago was that we were late in the season. Our prime contractor that we actually came in and gave us our spiel on the new processes didn't even bid on the project because we were late to the table, and we didn't get a superior job at the time. So I think we need to be looking at possible chip seal contractors, or at least be able to start garnering information on what the newest technology out there is, because it's changing by the month. They're coming up with newer and newer processes. I've noticed it over in the western part of New York. They've changed their processes there. So I just feel we need to be in December prepared to kind of go beyond just what roads we might think need to be done. And I think we need to be prepared to be looking at a projected schedule, and then so that in February, we can start the green light on discussions with contractors and processes and so forth and so on. And by then, we should know what our money situation is.
Phil, that's a great point. And so you're just a month early now and with your projects. So the areas that we chip sealed that are still holding up is that section of East River between.
East River's still
between
doable.
but
Grove's
it
still
needs
doable.
It needs a new coat.
And South Point's still doable. And south of Swan Drive we stopped at the bridge, the South Point Bridge. South of there is still doable, I would think. But I think in 2 years, I think some of those are going to have dropped off.
That's a good point. So if we're going to do chip seal, we ought to do as many roads as we can. And so we're going to throw this out for you to take so Hal.
Yeah, we'll come back with something more than just, hey, what roads do you want to go for with it? Because we need to put a schedule together for bonding and construction and bidding and all that sort of stuff. So we'll be able to plug in roads and projects into the schedule and just let the engineer cut loose on putting specs together and get it for bid. So I'll put that together and have something for you more substantial than just, hey, what roads do you want to do on December 7th?
Yeah, I mean, a road that we're going to completely redo, if that has to wait a year, it still has to be completely redone. But if a road we were going to chip seal degrades beyond the point that we're able to do it, then we're starting to walk backwards.
Yeah, and part of that is how much money are we asking for up front and how far is that going to get us? And so we'll figure that out. And
Okay.
we'll have to have some conversations with our bond counsel and our financial advisor, basically on our bond on the bond market and all that sort of stuff, and bonding capacity and when the timing would be best. So I'll get that all figured out for you and be able to present a package for you on the 7th.
And Derek, one other question. Do we have the ability to go back at the bids that were put out when we chip sealed? When was that? What year was that?
Couple years ago, 2-3 years ago.
At least
It's
it was
more
long-
than that.
Long time ago.
6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
It's
Do we still have
surprising.
that data?
5
Is
years
that on
ago, anyway.
file somewhere where we can go back and look at
Sure.
the vendors that were there? Because I think we need to get back to that. I think they were out of Lansing, if I'm not mistaken, the one.
The guy that we awarded it to was out of Romulus.
Right, but the fellow out of Lansing that gave us the presentation,
He was from Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids.
He retired from MDOT.
Right. That's the guy I think we want to talk to.
Okay. I got his name. I think I got his name from MDOT at the time.
Right.
Boy, that was a long time ago.
I know. But he had the up-to-date process, and he was the one we were hoping was going to, but he didn't bid. He was too late in the year.
He didn't bid. He said he was going to.
Yeah.
So we only had one bid.
Right.
You know the firm, the guy's name? What was their name, John? Do you remember?
Completed the project?
Romulus.
Highway Services.
But we were late in the year. Remember, they put us off. He thought he could do it in August or
I think
whenever
that's
it
a great
was.
point. I'm all in favor of
Their
it.
equipment was someplace else, so they didn't have it down here, they couldn't apply it.
Right. Because we were late in the year getting on the list.
So if my feeling is if we're going to do chip seal, we should aggregate 3 or 4 roads.
Yeah.
If we can. Because the difference is we're spending about $60,000 a mile versus $600,000 a mile to do the chip seal, right? 10% of the
Absolutely.
cost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had to talk to the guys from Monroe County. Didn't they say they wanted to come up here, but
They were going to come out on ferry,
then
and then
it's
they got
something-
rained out a couple times, and then they never came. They were going to do an experiment for us to show us how it would work. We went and visited Monroe County, several of us,
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
and saw their equipment, how they do it, and what their experience is. So, right now, Grow was chip sealed. Grow was.
Yeah.
And it's holding up pretty well.
And South Point's holding up rather well.
And that section of East River. But you
Only-
know, on South Point,
the only problem we had was the bumps that ended up on Horsemill.
Horsemill,
And even they couldn't figure out what happened.
still a problem. It's not a good, it's smooth, but but it's not a good road to drive on because every expansion joint
Yeah.
is heaving
That
through
could be
it.
remedied, maybe. I don't know.
Well-
Remember, they were going to come back and do it, and they
In
never
our
came
plan,
back.
we were gonna go and do a 2-inch overlay on it.
Right. But
And on South Point, I'd like you to think about that. I looked at all the, at the time we were doing this, I thought we drove it together, that we looked at all the fracturing that was going on, and I thought we concluded, at least from where we ended the chip seal on, that we might want to come in and do a 2 or 3 inch overlay.
there's a section.
We can look at that again.
There's a section, but further south on South Point, I think it could be chip sealed. We may have to do an intersection there right after the bridge, but, because there's some of that's broken up pretty good. But further south, I think it's in decent shape.
It's a lot of traffic though, right? South Point.
But once you get south of where they peel off for Swan Island and everybody after that just goes to Derek's house. I mean, there's
All right, well, that's a good point. So you're going to put that on the list? Any other comments like that?
no other comments from me.
Les?
Oh, I've got all the comments.
John?
I just want to acknowledge one of our seasonal employees moved on to a full-time career. He's been with us for 4 years, Sam Kowalski. He did an outstanding job for us. I'd just like to acknowledge that. And also to wish everyone Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I'm sorry I'm not going to make the meeting next month.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
Oh, and Happy Veterans Day, sorry. Thank you.
And don't forget the Marine
Nothing
Corps.
further. Thank you very much.
Further.
Marine Corps is 247 years old next week. Semper Fi.
So at our December meeting, I'd like that, normally we don't meet in January unless we need to, right, Derek? February is our budget meeting, and that's always an important meeting. What I'd like to ask everybody to do when you come to the December meeting, think about your winter calendars, if you're going to be out of town for a month or two, so we can make sure we have quorums. Okay? And we can talk about that, so, at the end of our December meeting. Other than that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Or,
Moved and supported. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
8:20 PM.
aye.
All right.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for watching or being in attendance. Thank you, Ray.